ask you mileage kitna hai. You bring home a 80 lakh Mercedes, he will still ask you the same question. He does not understand the fact that the entire selection process of Mercedes-Benz was purely based on so many other things, but not mileage. Yeah, not important, but that's how we are. So now we have to educate people that everything is different. So when we say that ISL has a rating of 0.27, it does not mean football is bad. It's just that you're looking at the number differently. So one of the main things I want to bring here is, see, everybody doesn't do sports sponsorship for the same reason. Yeah, so there are at least people, if I ask you what is the reason why what somebody would do, many will say it's to create a brand awareness. Yeah, but that's the most simple answer, but it may not be true for all the brands there is. Go back a little bit. So some might do it for a change of perception. I know Franklin Templeton did a marathon of life to change certain perceptions they went through. Some will do it for leads, some will do it for reputation building, some may do it for visibility, and there will be a combination of these also. So the next slide. So Hero is one of my biggest clients. I do 22 events for them globally, including India. So look at the way they have designed their spend on sports. So they divide it into 4 quadrants. There are certain things they do it for imagery. The TV rating is 0. Golf. Yeah, so it is purely not a ratings business. It is imagery. And is it imagery of their brand? No, it's the imagery of their leadership. So they want Mr. Pawan Munjal to be seen with Tiger Woods. It's not that he's trying to sell Hero Splendor to Tiger Woods or the likes of Tiger. So it's totally. So if we look at golf and say, "Arey koi dekhta hi nahi hai," it doesn't make a difference because that's not what it is. The people who are looking at it is where he wants to make a difference. So second is visibility. He wants visibility. So you will see that Asia Cup is one of the sponsors. So he does most of the bilaterals. So he gets visibility from there. He's happy with that, and that goes to all his Splendor guys. Then he needs appeal. He needs the brand to be appealing to a lot of people. Which sport does he choose? Football. Yeah, football is the most appealing sport in the world. It's a $19 billion industry. Everybody, you go to anybody and say that, what do you want to be if you are a sportsman? They will say, I want to be a footballer first. Our research says that. There are many who say cricket, many who say basketball, but football comes first. Then he's also ready to innovate. He's doing hockey fives. He's doing futsal. So he's ready to test a new format. So this is Hero. So this is to show that there are certain brands who spread it across all 4, and some may only purely do it for visibility. Next. Now, how does that fit? So this is exactly the visibility comes, the 52% of everything they do is for visibility, which comes from cricket, soccer for appeal, golf for imagery, and then others for innovation. Next. Yeah, so when you look at sports, the parameters for measuring it is only 3. There are only 3 parameters, but the combination of these parameters could be different for every sport. One is you need audience. You need to have certain level of audience. It could be a small audience. It could be a golf watched by 5,000 people, but it's the right audience. It's where you can sell your 3 Rolex. That's its target. Then you need exposure. Your brand should be seen. So, my friend said that rifle did not, shooting did not get that level of sponsorship, but where do you put a logo? What do you make it, where can the brand be seen? So you need exposure. Then you need impact. Impact is something which we are going to talk more about because ratings is something which you always see. Exposure is very easy to say that the perimeter board on the cover drive would get 20,000 seconds of visibility, 20,000 seconds of visibility on 17 channels of Star is worth 43 crores. So that's simple. Again, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so what are the outcome of all these? So there are two things you have to look when it comes to measuring audience. You need to have a TV rating and you need to have a reach. Now, reach is not a good number because it's anybody who has watched any of the match for at least 1 minute. So that gives you a reach. So it does not take into consideration that you have watched it for long. So TV rating is very important. It is the function of number of people watching it for a longer period. Then you need a brand uplift. So that's the impact of sponsorship. What do a consumer or a fan do with the exposure? So, and the sponsor exposure is a net media value you get. So it is just saying that I'm visible for 20,000 seconds, 20,000 seconds on TV at prime time on those channels are worth this much. Next slide. Now this is where most of the debate are, and this is where most of us either get beaten down by looking at the number or get praised. Now you look at IPL, it started with a rating of 4.76. Now it is at 2.11. The rating simply means 2.11% of 892 million people were available to watch on every minute of that 4-hour match across 74 matches. So that's a big number, it's not small. Now in that context, Kabaddi is 0.63 and ISL is 0.27. Yeah? But these are not small numbers at all. Like for example, the 0.27, which is your 130 million, would be 4 times the size of Saudi Arabia, which is a football nation. So all these numbers are very big numbers. This is how the entire trajectory of the sport rating is. Now this is an example of the ISL growth since inception. They had a reach of 240 million. Now they are at 130 million. Now the 130 million is not a bad number because in the last 3 years we have seen a lot of viewing shifting to OTT. So BARC just measures the TV audience. So the 130 means it's on television. So you may have another 60 million watching it on OTT. Now another way to look at the number, this is a profile of the football audience. So if you can see if any of your brands overlap with that. The best thing to look at here is that even though football had a rating of 0.27, there are markets where the rating is 2.71, you see. So it's not that football is not being watched. It's watched more than IPL in Kerala. It's just that there are so many other markets there which is pulling the numbers down. So what we can do here is that go to the measurement company and say that instead of defining the universe as everybody 2+ or 4+, cable and satellite, you give us a football universe, saying that out of all the markets in India, there are these 8 markets where football is viewed. So have a number on that. So you are talking about a rating of 2 to start with. And you will find brands who would want to market in those areas, and they would be happy with the 2 there rather than getting a 0.0 at Chandigarh. So now what is the media value we are talking about? So if you have a logo on a player, on a clothing brand, or you have a logo on the perimeter or anywhere in Stadia, you can have an exposure to it on TV and we can put a value to it. It's very simple, it's the media rate which goes into that. Once you get the value, you can go back to the people who have watched the sport, watched the tournament, and ask them a series of questions to see if there's any brand uplift. Next slide. Now, how is it done? It's an image recognition software. So if you open a book of sports encyclopedia on page number 937, you'll see that there's a software mentioned which can do this. So every time a player is on cricket, if he's batting, the software will tell you how often the blade of the bat was visible, the MRF was visible, and it will quantify that number. So it's purely electronic. Next. Now, how do we weight this down? So for example, if MRF was on the blade of the bat, and if it was seen for 10 seconds, and if the media rate of the broadcaster was 5 lakh rupees for 10 seconds, you will say that MRF the visibility was worth 5 lakh rupees. But that's not true. Because if MRF had put a TV spot of 10 seconds, he has total control on the entire narration. he has audio, video, he has his brand ambassador, so he owns the space. But when it comes to integrated or in-stadia visibility, is not seen in isolation. There are other brands around, there's a lot of clutter you're looking at. So what happens, we put the value down. So what will remain is typically 29 to 30% of that value. Okay, so the actual, this is the sponsorship value, not the other 5 lakh for the 10 seconds. So this is how we value that. It becomes, there's a qualitative aspect. So there are 5 factors which will bring the value down, but that is the true value of that sponsorship. This is an example of Tata on IPL. You can see that they get 36 hours of exposure. 36 hours of exposure is worth around 62 crores. And where does it come from? Boundary rope. So you see the best asset they had was a boundary rope. They had post-match presentation. So if you've seen a car kept in a stadium, a car display, you can see that is visible for 40 minutes. 40 minutes is a certain amount of media value. Next. Now this particular match was played in the UAE, so we can also do the valuation by venue. So for them it was very important to know that the placement of the car was at an optimum position in all 3 stadiums. So this can give you that. Next. These are all the assets they electronically picked up, and the valuation was based on that. So wherever it finds altos, it creates a value. The value is a function of size to screen ratio, clutter, how many other brands were present, all that. Go to the next slide. I'm going a bit fast because there's a lot of slides and I want to bring you to the impact of sponsorship. Next. This is the impact. Now, this is an example of CRED. So when CRED decided to do a sponsorship on IPL, there were a lot of people who did not hear about CRED. They didn't know what CRED was. So it was only 6.8% of the people who have heard anything about CRED before IPL. This is 2 weeks before IPL. Soon after IPL, we went to the same set of people. So there's no sampling error in this survey. Yeah, so we go to the same people and say, have you heard about CRED? And it jumped to 24%. Now, why would CRED, a new company, put that kind of money into IPL? It's purely because he could get this sort of lift with a 12-month TV campaign. Yeah, but he wanted to fast forward that. So he said that what I'm going to spend in the next 12 to 18 months, I can spend in the next 45 days. Let me see if I can get lift. So this is the first lift he got. Whether it's a good brand or a bad brand didn't do much because people did not download it yet. Whether it's value for it didn't do much. The reputation of the company didn't do much because when I'm saying didn't do much, we have a significant test. This difference which you see is common with any brand which would have been on IPL. Now you see the awareness of the brand, magical. Now is this function of purely the sponsorship of IPL? Yes, but it was also because of the type of TVCs they ran. You know, they had a very interesting TVC, not very intelligent, but for whatever it was, people remembered it. So, but you see, what they are trying to do is, when it comes to sports sponsorship, what you would do with the traditional approach, you can fast forward it. But now you have to consider 2 things. Your TV would have taken you 8 months to reach these sort of uplifts in brand with a lot of money, reaching a lot of people. Now, since IPL has 480 million people watching it, you are okay to do that. Okay? Now, when it comes to a smaller target audience, you probably have to be a little careful in spending that kind of money, but then I told you the objective of that person is awareness, getting the market very quickly. Sports is the right place to be. Purchase intent is something which we benchmark and checked. So how many people would download it? By the end of IPL, 18% of the people who have heard about CRED would have downloaded it and at least tried it. Next slide. Now this is Tata. Now does Tata enjoy the same amount of lift on all those parameters? Why will they? Because they're already an established brand, you see? So this is the reason. So then, would we ask that, is Tata wise enough to do that? Because they're already established, why would they spend that kind of money? It is simple. It is a property they do not want to avoid. So there is nothing wrong in doing that. So that still keeps them in the super position. They are not doing it for the same reason as credit is doing. Yeah? You see, purchase intent, shockingly low. Yeah? So that means no matter how much they sponsor IPL, the number of people who would buy the brands, how I have decided to buy the brands for whatever reason it is, it does not change. And the number of people who will not buy the brand will not change their mind just because they saw a car at the stadium. Okay, so this is another learning. But remember, Tata has an extremely good reason for doing it. So they know that maybe that is a function of all the other things, but there are 3 other parameters which are very important for them. Yeah? So every sponsor is doing it for a different reason. That's my point to tell you. And the success of anything we do is to find out that sponsor whose reason fits with that. So I have done a fit study for another brand here. This is Vivo. Vivo was extremely successful with their IPL sponsorship, extremely. Everything they could have taken 8 years to do, they achieved in the last years. So this is a actual proof of the pudding. Next. Now this is Hero. Now we do a lot of golf properties for them. Now you see there is uplift. These numbers are very tiny, but what the brief to us is that I'm not interested in general public and uplift of my brand in general public. For that I have cricket. For that I have football. But I'm doing golf for a special reason, and I want to know that all those little people, I mean little quantitative, like 4,000, 5,000 people who watched it, where do I stand? You can see superb uplifts. So every time they do a golf tournament, they enjoy massive uplift in that target group. So if we are able to qualify this, then we can take the conversation away from TV ratings. Yeah? Because if TV ratings was the way to go, then Rolex would not be sponsoring golf. And I should not be saying this. I've been a CEO of a TV rating companies in 2 countries. But I know how the numbers can be used and also be misused. Now this is Franklin Templeton. Now you see their logic. They are saying that we are a banking and finance and investment sort of a firm. There is one thing which is core to them. One is discipline, the discipline of investing, and an endurance, that how long do you invest? Okay, so you don't get a knee-jerk reaction, you put your money, wait for some time. So they're saying that this is very similar to a long-distance runner. Okay, every day he betters himself. He has endurance. He has a discipline to get up at 5 in the morning and train. So they do a marathon of life video around this, and they sponsored the Mumbai Marathon. And you see the amount of lift they enjoyed. Very quick, this is a one-day event. Huh? And this is the reason why Tata sponsors the Mumbai Marathon. They do the New York Marathon. Very simple. The amount of intangibles associated with distance running and marathon is unimaginable. This is something we did for Cadbury. Now, does this mean that you have to be on a player's shirt or in stadia on a perimeter to be associated with a sponsorship? No. This is the proof of that. So Cadbury said that we will not be a direct sponsor, in stadia sponsor, but we will be on the surround programs. So what they did, they got Irfan Pathan to go to the studio, and there are guys who on the camera mixing and everything. He goes there and gives a Cadbury chocolate and say that everybody is enjoying IPL, but nobody knows who's behind the scene, putting all this together. So I am thanking you with this Cadbury. That worked very well. So this is the output of that. They enjoyed a 21% brand uplift. Now a 21% is a huge number for Cadbury, because Cadbury is already doing a lot of things. Yeah, it's an established brand. So this is a classic example of how you can leverage sports, not just being visible in stadia. So on every parameter, see anything which is on that green color means is mathematically significant. That means if you do this research 10 times, these 4 parameters have achieved that successful numbers. Now this is how Kabaddi looks at it. Now this is Dilli Dabang. Now for them, the brief is very simple. I want to look at exposure. I do not have the merit or the need to do brand lift and all those things now. I'm too early at that time. I just want to know that can you give me a number, and then I go to a sponsor and say that this guy says that there is 82 crore worth of visibility on my front of shirt. So market will beat you down saying that give me a 20x return. So that means he can sell it for 4 crores. You see? So he is using it purely for that, and it's working very well for him. Yeah? So this is like early stage, right? Now, once he matures with it, then he will say that, no, there is a connect. And there is a brand which did this, VIP Innerwear. Now, VIP Innerwear never advertises on TV. Okay? It's a small brand, but an old brand. 1976 they started. They went and became the central sponsor of Kabaddi. We did a pre and post. The fit. So the question was that how appropriate is the brand, VIP, showing show cards, to the sport Kabaddi? Phenomenally high. It was so high that we have to jump from quant to qual to go to the people and say why. Okay, and they said because it's a close contact sport. So I think the player should feel extremely comfortable with what he's wearing inner. Okay. Now, is this true with other brands? Department of Atomic Energy was one of the sponsors. They failed on all 8 parameters except awareness. So there were people who watched Kabaddi knew that there was a Department of Atomic Energy, one of the sponsors, but they didn't know what they were selling. I don't know what they were selling. So it's not that all brands will work, but yes. Classic example. Aether is a relatively new brand when it comes to sports or even the category. They were very smart from the beginning. They said we'll look at all 3 aspects of, of our association with the sport, all 3. Whether it is visibility. So they got a visibility on those assets, 313. Okay. Now you know IPL, everybody here knows IPL goes at a 10x sort of ROI. So they are okay to give 30 crores to Gujarat Titans. Okay? So 10x ka return hai, value hai, this is what they do. Now that's the first part. They said that fine, the property, it's worth what I paid. Okay? Next step. Next one, this is just the assets actually. Then they said that is there a fit? Okay, is Aether an electric scooter a fit for IPL? Now what is the definition of fit? The definition of fit is that if CD, if you have watched IPL, I'll just come and ask you that do you think that scooter was a fit as a sponsor? It's claimed response of a fan. So we asked 4 questions, and this is textbook. Huh? This is the 4 modules which is asked for the last 60 years on fit. Go back, go to the next one. So we came up with this fit quadrant. So on 2 questions, this is the cricket fan saying that Aether Energy and IPL stand for similar things. Yeah, so there is something they say that it's modern, it's new, it's a quick format. Then we think that Aether Energy and IPL is a good fit. So this is claimed. Now we check that would they react the same way to another brand which is on IPL. So we took BKT tires, and this is again a brief from Aether saying that we are on 1 team. We could think of going to 4 teams. Is there merit in it? But the only example we took was BKT tires. And on the same question, same set of people, see, the fit didn't work. Now, are we saying that did BKT make a wrong decision? No. BKT is then for something else. Correct? BKT is not there to ask people whether I am a fit. They are purely for awareness. They want to tell the world that we are tires, and you should know us as much as you know MRF. Next. 2, 3 slides.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Now, is it because Ather was visible more? No. In fact, BKT was visible more because they were on 4 teams. So it's not the function of, fit was not the function of visibility. Next. We'll skip this. Just to show you profile that Kabaddi is, you can also look at that. So rural population. So you see the strength of Kabaddi is there. So you could probably get a brand which is more rural friendly. Is it just TV we look at? No, no, we look at social as well. You see that 536% increase in mentions, huge. Okay, now this is taking it to the next level. So we are the official suppliers of ISL, so we have a lot of teams who are buying data from us. So FC Goa came and said that fine, we understand the ratings, we understand the exposure. Now tell us that how different is our fan. So this is what it says. So we are saying, go to the next one. So we are saying that they are more likely to buy Jeep. They are more likely to buy Kia motors. They are more likely to engage with a Tata model. So we are trying to say, we ask the same question to a person who's saying, I'm a football fan. We ask the same question to a person who says that I'm an avid FC Goa fan. And we see the difference in their responses. Next. So they are 244% more likely to buy an EV scooter. And they have got Ather as the sponsor afterwards. Next. Yeah, that's it. So, you know, what we are trying to say is that every one of us is looking at the numbers and making a decision, saying that number, this is 4, this is a rating of 2, so this doesn't make sense. It does make sense. You have to look in the right context. You have to find a sponsor who has a different objective, not just visibility, and then you will find a perfect economic balance to make a viable business.
Thank you, Mr.
You can ask me questions.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. I found it very, very lucid. So since if there are questions there, I will extend the same courtesy that we did to Joy. So very quick questions. Let's go ahead and put a 5-minute timer on this, yeah? Yeah. So keep the question really short.
Hi, sir. I'm Sumedh, everyone. So my question is about, while I agree with everything that you said, and it was very, very enlightening, but the screaming fact that's coming out of this presentation to me is that the company that is becoming the sponsor, all of them have different ticket sizes for their products, right? So when I'm looking at something like a Swiggy, or when I'm looking at something like a mass product, essentially, for them, when they sponsor a cricket...
I'm going to ask you to do your panel pitch. Really make it short.
Okay, real quick, yeah. So to cut it short, essentially, what I mean to say is that, see, since sports is like a mass event, it's not like, unless it's like golf, cricket, volleyball, football, all of these mass events. So are we saying that it makes more sense for mass product companies to come in over here rather than like a Tata Motors that would be selling cars which would be not afforded by most of the people who are watching the games?
And your time's up, yeah.
See, not necessarily. I'll tell you that. You have, what, 460 million people on IPL, right? So that means that, see, if you have a TV population of 890 million, and if 460 million is watching it, that means you're very close to the population. So there you have no distinction on the viewer. It could be anybody. But since it's such a large number, he's already done an overlap with his target group. So there is the set of people who can afford his car. So that's perfectly okay. You have to be careful when the number is extremely small. So if you have a total reach of 35 million, then you might have to see that which of the target group will overlap with that. And then you have to find those affinities and sell to them. So if you try to use a lower base and try to go shotgun policy, you will not get. You have to be then a sniper to do it.
Okay, next question, and you really need to make it short. Up here, and then we'll take that last one at the back.
So Joseph, the data was very insightful. My quick question is, till 2019, the two Kolkata giants were not there in ISL, which they joined in 2020.
Correct.
Did you see any significant difference in the viewership because of that? And I'm assuming these are all television data, not OTT data, right?
Yeah. So unfortunately what happened, when these two teams came in, the landscape, the TV viewing landscape of India changed. India is the only country in the world where DTH numbers have gone down in the last 3-4 years. Okay, that means there are people who have cancelled their Tata Sky dish and not come back. India is the only country in the world where the OTT population went 5 times in the last 2 years. So what has happened is that bite-sized viewing, that means if a person was in his office at 7 o'clock, he would say that, let me get out and catch my match at 8. He's not doing that anymore. He's saying that, let me go to Hotstar and watch it anyways. So you know what happens is that we are at that unfortunate point where that OTT measurement is not come like bark. So if I put on top of that, then you might have seen that impact. Yeah, so it's not there, but it's just because of the lack of measurement, yeah.
The last question? Yes.
Sir, I would like you to repeat the first slide where this imagery and fourfold thing.
Yes, so what happens is that, see now Hero is a perfect example of imagery. Now all the bikes they make, the motorbikes they make is in the range of 80,000 to 125,000. It is definitely not for a golf viewer of that, because see who's sponsoring golf, it's Rolex, right? And you have Rolex, you have Tiger Woods, and you next to it is Hero branding. Now it is purely because Pawan Munjal has taken it on himself to say that there's a certain imagery and there's a certain class he wants to associate himself with, not Hero as a brand. So the only way to do that is put Hero there, so he's also seen. Then, you know, so his entire brief to his team is that my imagery, the leadership of Hero as a company should be in the likes of golf and all those things, even though my product is sold for the masses. So that's imagery, but that's only 8% of his spend.
Okay,
Thank you very much. I'm going to invite Mr. Shupriyo Sinha, Director, Business Transformation and Strategy, Peerless Group, and Member, Marketing and Brand Committee of the Bengal Chamber to come and thank Mr. Joseph Eapen for the presentation. Thank you very much, sir. Okay, I'm going to do a very quick introduction of the next speaker. And CD Mitra, can I request you to come on? CD has already been introduced.